We're focusing on in-home healthcare because we think its time has finally come. Kind of like telehealth. Pre-COVID, telehealth was just a little niche thing, and during COVID, it's up 10, 20, 30x. I mean, the numbers are off the charts.
Welcome, everybody. I'm Mark Peter Davis, Managing Partner of Interplay Ventures. On this podcast, I interview innovators about their strategies, industries, and decisions. Before we dive in, a few quick business updates. First, check out Thunder.vc. It's a new platform that connects founders and investors in a respectful way. In my mind, it has to be the easiest way to connect with venture funds and angels. Jump on and reserve your handle as soon as you can at Thunder.vc. Also, our incubator Interplay is accepting applications. Our program is super active. It's not an accelerator. If an accelerator is a classroom format, our incubator is much more like private tutoring. You can learn more and apply at interplay.vc. On today's show, I chat with Hamadeh, founder and CEO of Zeel. Zeel started by providing on-demand massages, and as you might expect, their business was absolutely decimated by COVID. In a do-or-die situation, they switched their strategy, and they expanded to offer other services, such as in-home COVID testing, and they're rolling out at-home and in-office vaccinations. They're positioned to be a pioneer in the nascent at-home medicine market. In our conversation, we explored this topic. We chat about how companies can navigate crises and better position themselves for success. I hope you enjoy the conversation. This episode is brought to you by Venwise. Venwise is a curated community of high-growth leaders. It's isolating being a leader, but it doesn't have to be. Through Venwise, you can join discussions and gain support from fellow C-level executives at high-growth tech companies. If you're interested, apply by visiting venwise.com. So let's jump in. Summer, I always like to start, increasingly as we got into this, by focusing on people's business backgrounds first. I find it helps people understand who we're talking to, and then we can kind of dive in to different dimensions or aspects or perspectives. So if you wouldn't mind, could you introduce us to Zeel?
Oh yeah, look, Zeel is a heck of a story these days because for those of you who've used it before, we're a technology-enabled massage therapy company. We come to your home and we could get to your house before COVID in as little as 1 hour in 100 cities around the US. It was really a magical experience. We got it to $50 million of GMV annualized in February 2020, breaking even. And then COVID hit, and everyone knows within 2 weeks, March 13, we're at zero revenue. The platform shut down in every state in the country. We briefly tried to stay open in a couple of states, actually. It was really funny. There were a number of providers and customers who were like, it's up to me if I want to get a massage. And if the provider wants to work in my house, this isn't up to the state. So there's a bit of personal rights, which of course in America here, we're so fond of, it's in our constitution. But the states won over. There was just too much backlash. So we shut it all down March 13. And we had no revenue coming in for 6 weeks. It was the most humbling experience I've ever been through. And I've been through, the 1991-92 recessions, the 9/11, obviously experience for those of you who were in New York then, which came after the NASDAQ 2000 crash. And then of course the 2008, crash. And so there was nothing quite like the COVID crash. But we summoned all of our resources. Everybody on the team was just a heck of a warrior. And we did everything you would expect. We cut all of the non-people costs in a matter of days and renegotiated every contract from Salesforce to our rent, that we could. But it became clear by the end of March that we couldn't spare people. And so we had to do furloughs, layoffs, and pay cuts and all that over the coming weeks and months. But thankfully, our government came through and provided PPP loans. I still wish they gave more PPP loans to restaurants and bars than they did to companies like ours. But we needed it because our massage therapists had no work. So we needed that money and we had to sprinkle it around. So it was very necessary to keep as many people as possible employed.
And so we're a year into COVID now, the pandemic. It's just about the anniversary of the start of it. How has the business sustained through that period? It sounds like you went into triage mode.
Yeah,
Are
we
you
went into
guys still
massive triage
functional?
mode. Yeah. So here's what happened. And I like to say that, crisis begets innovation, because when you're staring death in the face, which is what happened on March 13th, we weren't going to wait for the states to reopen. I mean, as far as we were concerned, massage therapy in the home might be dead for a long time to come. So we immediately started working on an idea that my team and I had, I'd say at least 2 or 3 years earlier, but maybe didn't have the guts to pursue. And it took COVID to kick us in the ass to do it. And that is to become a medical practice. And we finally unveiled our medical practice in November this year. But we said this, look, we already know how to come to the home. We've been coming to the home for 8 years. At that time, we had delivered more than like 1.5 million appointments to the home. Massage therapy is one of the most difficult in-home experiences to actually deliver. If you think about it, it's an hour. You're taking care of somebody in pain. And there's a serious trust and safety element, because the patient is, getting down to their, gym shorts. They're going under, a sheet. The therapist, 80% of whom in America are female massage therapists, they're going to a stranger's home. So we'd worked out over the past 8 years before COVID, every little detail you could imagine around trust and safety, ID verification, GPS, insurance, the whole thing. So there's a high level of trust. So we already have that. We already are delivering care to the home. Why don't we just do more medical type care? Why are we sticking to, this thing called spa massage? So that's what we did. In November, we unveiled our first medical service, which was COVID testing in the home. We started in New York, New Jersey, Connecticut. We've now serviced nearly 10,000 patients in the home. It's been an amazing experience. People are like, wow, somebody gets here in a few hours, swabs everyone's noses in a matter of 5 minutes. We courier the samples down to our lab in Brooklyn, and you get your results in under 24 hours. And you get the nice PDF that you can use during your international travel or for your workplace or whatever, right? So it's incredible.
What a convenient service. Now, I knew you had introduced the COVID testing late last year. I didn't realize it was part of a longer term plan of doing a medical play. Where does it go from COVID testing now that you've kind of opened that door? Well,
the healthcare practitioner who's coming to your home for COVID testing is a registered nurse, licensed practical nurse, so LPN, RN, or a nurse practitioner. These are highly skilled healthcare workers. So nurses are able to do a lot of things in America. So we're doing some blood draws. They can inject medication. I'm happy to announce today that a few days ago, we were approved by New York City Department of Health to be an official COVID vaccinator.
So, wow. So it's going to be on-demand vaccines?
Well, on demand, no, because you do have to do a lot of, paperwork, and there's some prep. And we're approved for J&J vaccine because we have a vaccine refrigerator here in the office behind me, but it's
vaccine at home.
Vaccine at home and in the office. We're really going to focus more on the office as a return to work strategy versus home. The reason is because it's very critical you don't waste a dose of vaccine, and each J&J vial has 5 doses. So we're still thinking through the home aspect, but you're going to have to do multiples of 5. Right. So it's going to be a little bit tricky.
Your neighbor's got to come over.
Yeah, but in the office, obviously, it'll be very easy to plan and coordinate everything. But yeah, I'm really excited. Right now, J&J vaccine is being developed, and so there's shortages all over the country. So I'm hoping in a few weeks we get our allotment in New York City, and we'll then announce it, right, in the emails and to all of our customers. I think it's going to be there's going to be gangbuster demand for this thing, and we'll go out and vaccinate people. So in some ways, we're doing our part, right, to get America back to work and back to normal, which makes us really happy. So that's the nurse aspect of it, and then we're working on true to our brand, which is taking care of your, body, your injuries, your chronic lower back pain, right? Your sleep disorder, your anxiety, which is what massage therapy is for. We're applying that whole thing into the medical practice. So think medical massage, think physical therapy. We're adding those disciplines. We'll be making some great announcements here in the coming weeks and months new lines of medicine that we'll be delivering into the home.
How did the investor community, and maybe not specific to your investors, anything you learned about what you're looking for in support or board dynamics when you're navigating these kind of uncharted waters? I know people can get pretty upset on the board if the company's not performing, but when it's a nuclear moment for the entire world, what did you see a lot of? Do you see you or other founders dealing with ugliness in that period, or do you think people are kind of coming around because it's so extreme? What's the?
I heard stories of ugliness through the grapevine, and I sit on some boards, but the investors and the board of Zeel they're such A class. They really are. They've always been very supportive, and they've all gotten their hands dirty in the operations. But immediately, and I don't remember which board member it was, said we have to have weekly board meetings. Like until we're out of this crisis, we need to meet every single week. So we put this recurring event in the calendar for Wednesdays at, I think it's like at 1:00 for an hour. And that thing just went and went and went. Like it had an end date of the end of 2020, but
wow.
We were convinced that within a couple of months, things will be back to normal again. No, we had a weekly meeting through like November 1. And then we changed it to every 2 weeks until Christmas. And then finally we're like, okay, let's just go back to quarterly. But even last week we were on a call. We said, I'm kind of miss getting together because we were getting together every single week.
Right.
And some of you may know that the lovely Venus Williams is on our board. And she had only joined about 7-8 months before COVID, to a regular quarterly in-person meeting that you fly into. And then it turns into a weekly Zoom meeting.
Right. A little more than she can sign up for.
I mean, hats off to her and the other board members. There was 90+% attendance between, March 22, whenever that first one was, to Christmas. Like over 90% attendance. I was the only one who had 100% attendance. But it was incredible. And
would you recommend that for folks, going to a weekly board meeting? I've never heard of that happening. And I do know that for a lot of entrepreneurs, some find a lot of value in the board meeting, some don't. But I think what is consistent, though, is there's a decent amount of prep, right? There's work created, and it's hard to communicate everything going on with people who aren't in the weeds every day without great materials.
I'm glad you asked that question, because here's how it went. We decided to go to a weekly company meeting too. We would have weekly company meetings in person, but it was more of a 4-hour sort of sessions where you review your quarterly KPIs and how you're doing against them. This became something else because we were, again, in triage mode. So, and we still have now weekly Monday town halls for an hour from noon to 1. So people are dialing in worldwide.
And does everyone attend, or?
It's mandatory. But there's some people sometimes who can't attend. They're on vacation or something else pops up. But yeah, we've got like 90+% attendance every Monday. So every Sunday night, and I now have a template, of course, a year later, but I write out like a 1-hour sort of review of what's going on in the business. So I started off for about 5, 6, 7 minutes, and then each senior leader presents his or her section. So there's a format now, and then we do Q&A at the end. And we also talk about like good stuff and bad stuff that happened in the prior week. It's been really fantastic. So what happened is I would do that meeting on Mondays at noon. And then on Tuesday night, I would take that template and just modify it just slightly. And that became my board meeting. So it's actually very easy to do the weekly board meetings because I was doing all the work Sunday night for the Monday town hall. But I found it very helpful because the investors, and the board was extremely nervous. You got zero revenue. And now you
have a lot of money at risk, right? They're a lot of money in on this thing.
You have years of investment at risk. So this helped to calm them down over time. But I will say, when I first mentioned in late March, like, guys, we're going to launch the medical business that I've kind of been hinting at for, 2.5 years here, half the board was like, how are you going to do that? You don't even have that in your DNA. And it's crisis mode. Like, you should just only focus on the core business and make sure it comes back. But the other half, I think saw right away, this is just an extension of the existing, values and strengths of the company. So we're in support. Let's do it. And I think within a couple of months, everybody was like, yeah, this is terrific. We see the future here. Just keep at it.
So in hindsight, offering more products through the same delivery network was the right decision, leaning into the crisis.
That's one of the conclusions, but the twist is that they need to be must-have services. And that's the one thing I was always struggling with at Zeel. That I like to be very transparent for people who know me. I talk about margins, revenue, amounts we've raised. In our town halls, we show people our P&L, our cash position. I have many employees who will, even like the new ones who started last week, say like, I've never been in a company that does this sort of thing. This is insane. The only thing we're not transparent about is everybody's salary. I have not figured out a way to be transparent about salary. And I read online somewhere the other day that this one founder pays every single employee of the 40 he has the same salary, all 40 people, including the founders. It was like $162,000 each or some crazy number.
I wonder what the twist is there. There's got to be like different equity plans or something. Because
I think there's different equity plans. He did say that.
And he did more senior talent to sign up.
He did say that in the blog. But yeah, the salary thing is the only weird one. I don't know how you solve that one. But we've been transparent like this at every company I've been part of since 1997. So this is what we do, but I think people appreciate it. It makes them more comfortable, less nervous when you really know what's going on. And you don't think that the founders and the leadership team has anything to hide. So that's the way we operate. But so must have, this thing we were struggling with is that massage therapy is nice to have. And it's something that's not, and it's something that's not covered by insurance. Even though, interestingly, about 65-70% of all customers who get massage, and not just on the Zeel platform, but when they fill out the reasons why they're getting it, 65-70%, they're in pain, they have headaches, they can't sleep, they have PTSD, they're post-operative, they're prenatal. So they're doing it for a medical reason, but our healthcare system just generally hasn't accepted massage therapy as something that should be covered, which is changing. And we'll be announcing some stuff, like I said, in a few weeks and a few months, where I think we're part of that change, and hopefully it'll be very exciting over the coming months and years.
Let's take that tangent for a second. Why do you think massage therapy hasn't met criteria or standards for the insurance side? What is that? What is the context around that?
Well, there are a lot of reasons, but it just became a spa-like treatment, I think, hundreds of years ago. You'd go to the Turkish baths, right? You'd get pampered. It was something more
like a recreational experience rather than medicinal.
Yeah. And then, when you see what's posted online about massage, it's, people in the Hamptons by the pool. It's especially massage at home. When we first launched, people were like, that's for the 1% of the 1%, right? Well, it turned out it's not. It's actually reasonably affordable. For about $150 for an hour, you can get a very relaxing, soothing massage. You can take care of an injured joint. People don't even know that, during physical therapy, you usually will have 15 minutes of manual therapy, and that's coded as massage therapy. So it is partially covered, just not covered when you're a massage therapist. So the people who have to deliver it have to be more trained. They have to become part of the medical establishment. And that's how you ultimately make it a part of the healthcare system. You take it out of spas, you take it out of, hotels, and you put it in clinical settings, and you turn it into an actual, healthcare service.
Okay. One of the things about your business that I find fascinating is the operational complexity. And you alluded to this earlier on, how difficult it is to deliver the appointments at the speed you're delivering. And increasingly, we're seeing a lot of entrepreneurs show up, and whether it's micromobility or Ubers of the world, anything in the on-demand economy is almost making this look easy. But I have a feeling it's not easy. And I have a feeling there's going to be a lot more people trying to enter this space over time. What advice do you have for entrepreneurs entering this specific niche? Something doesn't have to be massage, but when they're coming to do an on-demand service, is there any best practices or technologies people need to know about? Relevant?
Well, and in-home healthcare, which again is even more complex because healthcare is highly regulated and you have to be HIPAA compliant. You have to take good notes because there's always a referring physician of some kind. So when we come on site to do something, even a COVID test, there's a referring physician, right? So there's a lot more complexity. And then when you're on site for an hour performing a service or 10 minutes performing a service, you're in someone's home, you're in their sacred space, right? So you also have to think about those dynamics. Like if something happens or you break something, like, you have to have a whole team and insurances that kick in. So we've had to build all that stuff over the last many years and deal with a lot of different issues. And we got very good at it. But, there's nothing, I would say, like, there's nothing really off the shelf per se. You really have to think through all the processes and have it in your DNA. So I always tell founders, like, the best companies build their own software. I mean, you can use pieces off the shelf, but ultimately you have to build it, for your business. And there's going to be nothing really off the shelf that you could just use. Otherwise, you're just like a retail store, right?
Right.
Then you're not a high functioning tech company, right? Then you're not raising VC money. Just open up like a retail store or some little simple local online business and use somebody else's software and just run that business.
So we both did our MBAs, and I remember taking an operations class where there was more meat on the bone than I expected. There was more science and methodology around queuing theory and some of these other things where there's formulas that, I took it away as one of the 10 things maybe I found in business school where I found it to be a nugget of enlightenment that I would take with me for my career. How intensive do you guys think through kind of operational research and science of this when you're dealing with something at that scale? Do people who are starting companies, can they just kind of glue a basic intuitive methodology together? Or do they need to go find a PhD from the local MBA program to help them set it up the right way in the beginning? What's the level of complexity and concern that someone should have when they're starting in the space?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. And by the way, I didn't do my MBA, but I do have a master's in chemical engineering. And I did take 4 classes.
So then you didn't take operations class.
I did, no, but I was going to say I took 4 classes at Stanford Business School and I took operations research.
Okay,
and so
right.
I took a class on how you set up a factory flow and the issue of bottlenecks, which is really what you're referring to. So we were just reviewing before this podcast here in the office, a whole insane OR diagram of one of our processes. And you can imagine what these things look like. There's like dozens of boxes everywhere and all these arrows. Absolutely. And, if yes, go this way. If no, go that way. And just how it all triages. That is not something that I can do now. 25 years ago, I could build one of those. But you hire great people. That's the whole point. A good founder and CEO builds an amazing team around him or her, right? And pushes the stuff, that he or she isn't good at to those people, right? And then just provides vision and passion to get everybody really excited. And also, like, I don't code anymore. The last time I coded in the 90s was like with COBOL and Fortran, and nobody even uses those languages anymore. When I was 12, I coded with punch cards on an IBM machine. So I don't know how to do this stuff. So when we have these coding sessions, sometimes I'll come for a few hours. I just bring in food and coffee and booze to everybody. That's my function.
Right.
Keep
You're the
everybody
cheerleader.
happy. Yeah, I'm the cheerleader. I talk about the vision. I give them a bunch of food. We toast and they just code away, right? So you don't have to know how to do everything. You just have to bring the right people together.
I'll add in for the folks listening. If you didn't do your MBA, didn't do undergrad in operations, or had some sort of formal education, there's a great book that a lot of the operations class require folks to read. It's called The Goal, and it's a fictional book about someone working in a factory. But while it's a little story, it teaches you how to think about operations. So you can skip the class and read the book. Again, it's called The Goal. I'm a nerd, so I loved it, but I think most people probably hate reading it. But
I'm going to check it out. I haven't heard of it.
If you're interested, it's a, you're reading kind of a novel, but you're experiencing someone living through the discovery of operational insight.
That's cool.
What do you think the industry needs, right? When we're looking at more broadly the on-demand industry, are there picks and shovel services or tool sets that, entrepreneurs listening should go to seek out and fill in? Are there solutions that you think, in spaces in the on-demand industry that a type of service hasn't been delivered yet that needs to be done and you're not focusing on it? What are the opportunities for folks right now?
I was going to say that I'm not focusing on. That's harder. I mean, we're focusing on in-home healthcare because we think its time has finally come. kind of like telehealth pre-COVID.
Yep.
Telehealth was just a little niche thing. And during COVID, it's up 10, 20, 30x. I mean, the numbers are off the charts. And Health and Human Services is finally thinking about erasing those lines where only somebody who is medically licensed in a state can see somebody over video or call them on the phone in that state. Those lines have been temporarily erased during COVID, and now they're talking about permanently erasing them, which quite frankly, they should. Why can't I be in New York City and talk to a psychologist who's licensed in California, get great care? And, why not? But pre-COVID, you couldn't. So in-home is the same thing. The healthcare system is generally thought of in-home as you have to be confined to your home. You have to be like morbidly obese or, dementia or Parkinson's, unable to move for them to even cover healthcare to the home. No longer, right? It's now the new paradigm. So I think in-home healthcare is the next big thing. And there are going to be dozens and dozens of competitors and adjacent type companies to what we're doing at Zeel. So the opportunities in in-home healthcare are, the delivery of care, which is what we're focused on, the logistics. But then there's the EMRs for in-home care. There's the delivery of prescriptions. There's all the monitoring using Bluetooth, cameras, right? Everything else to see how somebody's functioning. There's, like you were telling me about your friend earlier, I have some friends who are now putting that continuous glucose monitor, right, on their tricep. Right. So you can start measuring somebody's like vitals at all times. There's one of those coming out, I hear through the grapevine now at Stanford, for blood. They'll continuously monitor certain items in your blood so that you can start to see what your testosterone or LDL levels and glucose is in real time, like throughout minute by minute, in like 5-minute increments. That's incredible, right?
Right.
Think about what happens now. You go to the doctor once a year for a physical. You get all your results this one point in time. That doesn't tell you shit. You want to see it throughout the day and week. What about when I'm hungry, when I'm sleeping, when I've had a big meal, what kind of meal?
Or when something starts to go wrong.
Or when something starts to go wrong. So that aspect, I think, of on demand, if you will, this continuous monitoring of your body, of your vitals, of even what's going on in your house, so talk non-healthcare. That's, I think, the next big wave.
And do you think in-home healthcare is the path for people who aren't stuck at home? Right? If you're healthy and
absolutely, yeah,
you have access to a car, why would people decide to do the healthcare, their treatments at home versus going into a hospital or facility?
There's so many reasons. The first is that non-compliance on a prescription of any kind is off the charts. People just they get lazy. They don't want to travel. The facility's too far. You got to take time off work, find a babysitter. All those issues are eliminated when the care comes to your house. You don't have to find a babysitter. You don't have to drive there. And the hours are better. At Zeel, we're delivering care as early as 7 a.m. and as late as 10:30 p.m. start times. We're open longer. We're open 7 days a week. So you can get a lot more done. Also, why should you have to go to the laboratory to draw your blood? I can come to you, draw your blood, and carry it over there. You'll save an hour of your time. It just takes 5 minutes for me to come over and draw your blood. So it's that kind of thing. That convenience factor, that higher level of compliance means in the long run, we will save money in this country because more people will get health care because it won't be such a pain in the ass to go to the doctor or go to the lab or go to the hospital.
Are there short-term healthcare or cost reductions that come with this too? I'm imagining, we're seeing the remote work and now companies are spending less money on offices.
Right.
Is there a parallel for medical real estate?
Or yeah, maybe. I haven't even thought about it. I mean, it's very hard to deliver. Well, it's impossible to deliver ER care at home. It's also, I think, illegal in every state. So ERs will always have a place.
Okay.
Urgent care, people used to think you can't deliver urgent care to the home. But there's this company, Dispatch Health, that's raised a ton of money in the last 6 months. And they're delivering urgent care to the home in vans and cars that are equipped with urgent care equipment. So even something like flu, stitches, you could take care of at home, right?
Yeah.
They even have mobile CT trucks now. You could, in theory, come to someone's home, CT scan them in the truck, take off. So there's a lot of things you can do at home, surprisingly, that I think will help the healthcare system in the long run. Because again, the issue is compliance. If if I have a prescription for 10 PT sessions, and because I can't deal with my time off from work and taking care of my kid, I don't go to any, or I go to just 3 and give up.
Right.
That injury can ultimately become more acute and eventually lead to a surgery, or God forbid, opioid addiction. This is where the whole opioid addiction came from. Just take a pill. Like, it's just easier to do that than to get your PT sessions. It's a tragedy. So if we can come to the house to get you to take more PT, to get you well faster, that ultimately will save the healthcare system money in the long run and make the humans, more mobile, more productive, happier.
What types of care do you think are most likely to move to be in-home?
Well, it's already happening, but again, physical therapy and the massage therapy now is in the home, and we're now building out a whole physical therapy practice. Simple things, what we call routine medical care, like blood draws, COVID tests,
so like
vaccinations. Yeah, I think everything that can be done in a physical. We've been exploring this whole thing. There's portable EKGs, portable ultrasounds. There's small sort of scales, so you can measure weight, you can measure someone's height. So you can do a basic physical exam within reason, in the home. There might be a couple parts you can't, or if you uncover something, then you're going to have to go to a specialist. But you can get a lot of this stuff done now in the home. So we call it like routine covered medical care can be delivered at home.
Fascinating. Okay, thank you for sharing that. Taking this a different direction for a second, I mentioned this in the beginning, but I want to come back to it. You're wearing 3 hats, and I know the primary hat is Zeel. You've got some part-time hats. Your relationship with Lightspeed, right? Your relationship with Alpaca, where you're an advisor.
Yep.
How does having kind of ancillary roles that are related to the startup community help you as a CEO? Is this something you would recommend for other entrepreneurs out there?
I do, yeah. It's not the same as in the early days. We did all these networking events. You remember in the 2000s, tons of networking events. I don't find networking events all that valuable. Those are social activities. Social activities have value. So, go to a social activity.
Right.
But the activities I engage in with Alpaca and Lightspeed, I'm meeting incredibly smart, determined founders. I'm analyzing business plans. I'm learning about new software tools, new business models. So I make some investments, but I also learn a lot of stuff that I can apply back to what I'm doing at Zeel. So, we've, through one of my investments there, something I've explored, even if I don't invest in it, we may buy that tool at Zeel because I think it's such a great or neat solution to something we're doing. Right. So it's really important. And you also tap this network when you're looking to hire people. So I'll tap some of the founders that I've invested in and say, do you know anybody for this position? Or I'm looking for a salesperson, or I need a great iOS developer. And they're so helpful, right? Because I'm one of their investors.
So it gives you kind of more or less a curated flow of information and the ability to go back to those organizations and leverage their network.
Yeah. And it keeps your hand on the pulse of what's going on so that you're aware of like the next, big things, the next trends. So you're not caught flat-footed either in your own business.
Do you think CEOs who have gotten to a certain point in their venture company life cycle should be thinking about seeking these roles out? I know you're a veteran, right? You've been around the block. You probably got a call. Are the first-time entrepreneurs out there, should they be thinking, hey, we just raised our B, I'm going to go look for an advisory role? What is, or get an EIR role with a venture firm? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think you need to be a little proactive, but oftentimes these things come to you, but still you have to be a little proactive. Look, there are some companies and some VCs who are like, the founder better not take any board seats or do anything, right, that interferes with the running of the business. I think you want to gauge how sort of open your board is about these outside roles. But I generally find they're helpful. Unless you're spending inordinate amounts of time on them, and I really don't, then I find that they're very helpful. They keep your company relevant, out there. People want to support you. You're supporting them. And like I said, good partnerships or new investments or new hires come out of these things. So ultimately, I encourage this kind of activity with my own people and with the companies I'm invested in. I think it's helpful to your business. I do.
You mentioned earlier that I might have tipped you off on one of the questions for this interview.
Just
right?
one. Yeah, just one. The rest
Just
of
one.
this I've been...
Well, I'd like to keep these pretty surprising for folks.
Well,
keep it a little raw.
This one needed a little bit of thinking, right? So at least it was organized.
This is the one. I don't want to get trite answers from folks. I want to get truth and insight. Look, you've got a lot of experience. You've probably seen a lot of stuff that most entrepreneurs through the whole career might not see, just because we're all going to have different paths. Give us an anecdote, some insight. What's the most important advice you would give another entrepreneur?
So there's several lessons on it to impart here as we finish this thing. Lesson number one: failure is part of the process. I remember reading Paulo Coelho's Alchemist, and the line that resonated with me, this is years ago, is that success is falling down 7 times and getting up 8. Related to that, lesson number 2: never give up. Yeah, if you realize there's an insane structural flaw in your model, like you're selling $1 for $2, you can never get that cost down, sure, then move on. But if you know that your idea works and you see that your customers are so grateful for your product and you see a path to real scale, keep at it. Remember Churchill: never give in, never give in, never, 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 in nothing great or small, large or petty. Never yield to force, never yield to the apparently overwhelming might of the enemy. Could have been talking about startups. Lesson number 3: realize that entrepreneurs aren't born. I really believe this. They're made. You're made through focus, discipline, determination, resilience. You keep at it. You set quarterly goals, and then you work backwards to determine what you have to do each day to get there, and then you do it each and every day like clockwork. You just have a few more, Mark.
Please,
lesson number 4.
These are great.
Lesson number 4. In order
to
do lessons,
I'm getting a good deal here.
I'm giving you 7. So lesson number 4 is, in order to do lessons 1 and 3, right? Failure, never give up, and you have to be made, not born. You have to be in very good physical and mental shape. So you work out daily. I do something 6 days a week: weights, Peloton, yoga, foam rolling, assisted massage and stretching using Zeel's people, of course, and sometimes 2 of those per day. But you got to do it. And nutrition, is a big part of this too. You got to eat reasonably healthy food. So cut out the sugar, drink a little bit of coffee, but not too much. Cut back on the alcohol because you want to be in peak shape mentally and physically. Number 5, your most important job is sales. Getting customers to buy, hiring talent, raising money. The second most important, cash, which obviously is related to sales because sales generate cash. But you have to make sure that your company has enough, and you have to use it wisely. Most companies fail because the entrepreneur thinks sales is beneath him or her. I've seen it too many times. Or because the entrepreneur allows the organization to run out of money. It's a travesty. Lesson number 6 is that B2B is easier and a larger opportunity than B2C. Of course, B2C is sexy, and there are numerous examples of successful B2C companies, but B2B contracts are bigger, oftentimes more recurring, a little easier to market and sell to. And then the last one, number 7, I've learned over many, many years, is I believe in subscriptions. I want every startup to launch a subscription. Even if that subscription can't be the whole business, launch a subscription. I work on it with every company I'm part of.
Those are fascinating insights. Will you give one little line of color on the subscription bit? I think
sure.
Everyone knows subscription businesses, but the idea of kind of shoehorning it in to another model is fascinating.
Yeah, like basically every time I join a board or I invest in a company, some of them obviously have a subscription, but a lot don't. So I'm just like, what are you doing exactly? Because otherwise people just, are buying every once in a while. And, can you create sort of some certainty around where your revenue will be? Otherwise, every first of the month, you got to try to figure out what the frick your revenue is going to be. So imagine if most of it, if not all of it, is already determined. That would be amazing, right? So I just sort of analyze what's being sold and just figure out if there's a way to get a little more recurrence or to create a little bit of extra value. So, for example, if companies like Uber and say DoorDash, in theory, didn't need a subscription. People order so much, and yet they both do, right? If you pay for the Uber Eats subscription, which I now have, you save money on every order. You get like priority access. If you do have an issue, which I had the other day, there's an 800 number you can call. Someone answered it right away. I was amazed. Wow. And I got a full refund on an issue I had because I took a picture of some undercooked meat. Like, this is a very valuable subscription, and on top of that, you got the $15 a month from the Amex Platinum card if you had that too. So free subscription. So that's even better. Mm-hmm. But it's just valuable. So at Zeel, we decided early on, people should get massage all the time, even though they don't normally think of it that way. So we have a subscription where you get a massage a month, comes with a free massage table, a robe, and it also comes with a 20% discount. So about 50%, this is all pre-COVID, of course, 50% of our revenue pre-COVID was already baked in the next month from the subscription. I was trying to figure out a way to get it to 100%. Didn't quite get there. But that just takes a load off your mind, every month, knowing that you've got all this, revenue and cash already coming.
That's fantastic. With sage advice. Samer, thank you so much for making time to join us today.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, listeners.
Special thanks to Samer for taking the time to join me today. There is no easy way to navigate a crisis, but hopefully there were a few key takeaways from today's conversations that will help founders accordingly. In particular, I thought Samer's advice on subscriptions was very interesting. If you liked what you heard, please hook us up with a like or a 5-star review, and feel free to share with a friend. You can find me on Twitter at MPD. To hear more of my conversations with innovators, subscribe on YouTube, Facebook, or any major podcast platform. Just search for Innovation with Mark Peter Davis.